So far, our three buttons act like buttons, but of course they're not going to do anything when we click on them because we haven't added any other action script to them yet. Now, just so we have something to test, I'd like to add a couple of animations to our timeline. So let's go up and use a couple of motion presets on our logo and our tagline here. I'll click on the logo, and the first thing is we can see it's a movie clip, and it's in a layer by itself, so it's ready to be tweened. We can just go over to our motion presets panel. Now, I have mine docked over here at the side. But, of course, if you don't have yours available on the stage, you can always go to the pull-down menu and bring up motion presets right from here. Let's take a look at the presets that we've got available. I want a simple fly-in, so I think I'm going to do maybe a fly-in right. That looks like the correct motion. Now, if we click Apply, it'll apply my motion, but remember, it's going to start at the current location where my logo appears and then move off from there. Now let me just back out here so we can see what's been created. I'll change my stage zoom to 50%, and you can see that my logo starts here, and if we drag along the timeline, we can see that our logo slowly fades in and appears, but it's all the way off here to the left. Now there actually is another way to apply presets, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that action all the way back to the point where I applied the preset. There you can see undo apply motion preset, and my logo's back where it was. Now let's try this again. I'm going to go into the motion preset panel, and I still want to use the fly in right, but we do have another way to apply it up here. When I pull down the option menu for the motion presets panel, you can see we have apply at current location, and that's actually the same as the apply button down here, but we also have end at current location. Now that's actually perfect for our situation since the logo is at the place where I want it to end. So we'll just press end at current location, and you can see that my object moves over a little bit, and we can see by the path that it ends right where we dropped it off. In fact, let's scrub along our playhead here. We can see the logo coming in, and we can see it parked nicely at that end location. Now just because it's a preset doesn't mean we can't change it. Of course, I can move the playhead back to the start frame. I'll just grab the point where our logo begins and pull it off to the right. That's just going to extend the amount of movement and make sure that it comes in all the way off stage. And of course, we're going to need to set up our other frames so that our background and our tagline don't disappear. Now, let's go over something else that's very common. I'll move my playhead back to the beginning, and you can see that we do have this one layer hidden with the text in it. Let's take our entire timeline and let's stretch it out to, let's say, about 60 frames for now. I'm going to click at frame 60, right at the top of my timeline, and drag downwards. That'll select the entire column. And you can either use your Insert Timeline Frame command or your F5 keyboard shortcut, whichever you're comfortable with. That's going to extend all of my layers out to frame 60. And as you can see, it's also going to extend our tween as well. Now, this kind of timeline can actually cause you a few problems. Let's take a look at the animation that we put on our logo here. I'll just select it, and you can see that all the animation takes place in even frames. Now, when we put the motion preset on, we had a nice ease at the end, so our object slowed down as it neared the end of the path. But what's happening is that easing is now occurring at the end of this timeline, way past that keyframe. So it's not a great idea to just extend our motion tweens out as long as we need to. It's much better to actually have a moving portion, or frame span, and a static frame span after it when you just want to have your object sit still. So let's make a few changes to this motion tween. First of all, I'm going to want to move this keyframe back where it was. Whenever you want to work on a property keyframe in the middle of a tween by itself, hold down the Command key on the Mac or Control key on the PC and click on the keyframe. And there you can see I've selected that keyframe just by itself. Now, after you have it selected, go ahead and grab a hold of the keyframe and we can move it back to the end of the timeline where it used to be. Now we can see that ease slowing coming in. It's still a little bit too long, so I'm going to pull this timeline in and shorten it up so it's only about 20 frames or so. Now it's back to the way it was to start with. And what we need to do is create a static portion on the other end of it. This can be a little tedious, so let's just work our way through the steps. What I'll need to do is insert a blank keyframe right after my motion tween. If we insert a keyframe, it'll just extend the tween again. So I'm going to go up to my Insert menu, and under Timeline, I'm going to put in a blank keyframe. Now, the keyboard shortcut, even though it doesn't show here, is F7 for this. And there's my blank keyframe. Now, I need a copy of my logo at its finished position. So I'm going to move the playhead back one frame. There's my logo. And I'm just going to use a normal Command-C or Control-C for a copy right off the keyboard. And I'm going to go to my new blank keyframe, and I'm going to do a Paste in Place. Now, that's right here in our Edit menu. And notice if you're using keyboard shortcuts, that's going to be Command or Control-Shift-V. Now we've got our logo dropped in the right position. And now I can just select the end keyframe of that timeline, and I'll press F5 to add more frames. Now, that's a lot of work, so let me show you a little shortcut for doing that on the tagline. Now, first of all, our tagline is sitting right at the end of where we want it to animate to. And we want it to fly in just like the logo did. But what I can do right now is I can make the static portion of our frame span now before we make the motion tween. I'm going to go to our tagline layer. I'm going to click right below the keyframe in our logo layer, and I'm going to insert a keyframe at that spot. You can use F6 if you want. And now we've already pre-created the static position. Now, that is a lot easier than making it after you make a motion tween. Next, we're ready for the actual animation. And since we wanted to do the same thing as the logo, why don't we make a preset out of it? All I have to do is select the logo motion tween. I can go over to my Motion Presets panel, and down here at the bottom, I have a new motion preset from the selected object. When we click that, all I have to do is give it a name, something like Fly-In Channel. We'll click OK, and now we have our new custom preset available to be applied to any object we want. Now we'll just go and select the tagline. I'm just going to click anywhere in that frame span, go over to my Motion Presets, and we're going to choose Fly-In Channel. But once again, I'm going to go up to the Options menu up here at the top and choose End at Current Location instead of the normal Apply. Now, let me click away and see what we've created. We have our two animations following right along with each other. And as you can see, we now also have the static portion of our animation pre-built as well. Now, for one last change, I'm just going to grab that motion tween, and I'm going to move it down just a little bit. You can see that that staggers our two animations so they don't look quite so robotic and joined together. And you can see that that just pushed my keyframe down the line a little ways. So now we have our two logo pieces kind of flying in one after the other. Now, as you can see, whenever you want a static section at the end, this is a great technique to pre-build those objects, and that way you won't have to worry about the much more complicated procedure of copying, pasting, and moving that static section into place by hand.